Welcome to the Bronx African American History Project. My name is Steven Payne, librarian and archivist at the Bronx County Historical Society, and I'm here again for part 2 of an oral history with Alice McKenzie, who grew up at the Coops or the United Workers Cooperative Colony located at 2700 Bronx Park East. And Alice, the end of the first part, you were talking a bit more about your experience being one of the few Black children in elementary and junior high. So we'll pick up there again if you'd like to add more about that.
I think I would like to, well, I talked about, the clear racism in public school. Then I went to middle school called junior high at that time.
Sure.
And I don't know if I mentioned this, that there were Latino kids there, but they were not considered Black.
Sure.
They had no problems as far as I know.
Yeah.
But they were very nice to me, which was an exception.
Yeah.
But what really, really pissed me off was they really felt I needed a boyfriend. And there was one Black kid in the school.
Oh my God.
And his name was Harcourt Wiltshire.
It's a very regal sounding name.
He was a little bit chubby. He had a very round face. And I wasn't interested in him.
Sure.
But I had to be. So I don't know if I went to the prom or not. Anyway, Harcourt really had a crush on me. And he bought me a charm bracelet. And it was gold. And I said, I can't accept that. Because I think that meant we were going to go steady.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what he wanted.
So he was very sweet. We also went to the prom together. And that's all I could say about Harcourt.
Yeah.
We had nothing in common.
Yeah.
Except being Black.
Sure. Absolutely.
And he was a churchgoer, and I'm not a churchgoer.
Yeah.
Or any kind of goer of religion.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I can remember in junior high.
Sure.
I do remember my graduation, and I had, I forgot what those dresses were. I was very, very, very dressed up. And I think I had my hair straightened. My father let me do that once.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not sure. And I think I might have mentioned to you going up the ladder in school that since I was a student at the School of American Ballet, you automatically got into performing arts. You didn't have to audition.
That's right. I remember you said that.
Right. Was that in the last interview?
Yeah, that was in the last one, and the original one that is no more. But both of them mentioned that, and
really?
And that your father wanted you to go to Evander Childs instead. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that you had a lot of friends at Evander Childs and that you enjoyed that aspect of it. But would you like to say more about your experience at Evander Childs?
I had a real good time. I was with all Black people for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah.
It was really great. And it was great. And that's why my father wanted me to go there.
Sure.
He was married to a white woman, but he thought I needed to know Black people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, anyway.
Yeah. Do you remember, was there a point when you were growing up where you really uh, began to identify strongly as Black, or did you always do so?
Well, in the 1950s, you didn't have a choice.
Yeah,
And interestingly enough, everybody on the street knew I was Black,
yeah.
as opposed to today, people think I'm white,
Mm,
which annoys me.
I'm sure. Yeah,
And um, I think the reason, I might have mentioned this the last time, I don't want to repeat myself.
oh, it's fine if you repeat yourself a little. Yeah,
Um, I think the reason for that was that there really were no biracial kids.
sure.
There were no mixed kids. And if you're colored, you're colored,
Mm,
regardless of what your skin color is. And
yeah,
everybody knew I was Black.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, and I remember going to the Soviet Union with my mother after high school, and people wanted to know what I was on the bus. We went by bus, and my mother said, "I'm not telling them what you are. It's none of their damn business." So anyway, my mother was a fighter too in certain kinds of ways.
Yeah, it
Definitely.
sounds like it. It sounds like it.
I also, oh God, I might have mentioned this, that my mother got in a fight with Angie.
No, no. You didn't mention that. Yeah, if you'd like to talk about that, I'd love to hear about that.
Well, I don't really remember the details. Oh, Angie said to my mother that my mother was a racist.
Mm.
And my mother was furious,
Yeah,
furious, and went at her.
yeah,
Um, and to marry my father in the 1930s, that she had a rather strong backbone.
yeah, for sure.
Right. So that, and I kind of vaguely remember that, but
You were pretty young, I'm guessing.
uh, yeah, yeah. I don't know how old I was,
Yeah.
but
Um,
I think my sister told me that
yeah,
actually.
uh she mentioned that in her oral history as well. And she said Angie actually used to babysit her up until that. So I imagine she might have babysit you too when you were really young. Um,
I
maybe.
don't remember.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that her cousin, I think it was, or her niece, I'm not really sure. I had no idea that she had so much. Oh, come on. Here we go again. Can you hear me and see me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I forgot what I was going to say.
Uh, about Angie, her cousin, or she had, I guess, a
Oh,
lot of people around her. Is that right?
and my sister and I talked for at least an hour about the Coops.
Yeah.
And it was just hysterical.
Yeah.
Was she funny on her interview?
She was very funny. She was very funny. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, my sister's a trip.
yeah. And
And I love her.
the more of these that have taken place, it's very interesting, what a few years, or the difference that a few years can make, because she and everyone older than she is knew that almost all the Black families were on the top floor. Um, but I think things had started, I guess apartments had started to open up, or something had started to shift, by the time that you and people who are your age or younger really, started gaining an awareness of things in the Coops that either that was no longer the case or maybe it just wasn't as apparent anymore. But yeah, it's funny. Just everyone her age and older has mentioned it.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah. So what was your experience like in the Coops? Your overall experience. We'll start with that. Just your overall
Should I
experience.
finish the high school? The Coops is more interesting than
Yeah,
high
yeah.
school.
If you have something else to say about high school, then you can say it now. Then we'll go to the Coops.
Uh, the only thing, one of my, or several of my Black friends in high school told me that I could pass.
Mm,
And that pissed me off.
yeah, yeah.
And I said, I have no interest. And some people would call me mulatto.
Mm,
And that also really pissed me off.
I bet.
Uh,
I bet.
and people who call themselves identified as mulatto, uh, they thought that that was a step up.
Mm,
And I think that's disgusting.
yeah, absolutely.
So anyway,
Absolutely.
that's the end of high school.
Yes.
I didn't have sex until college.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I was 18, which apparently is late. But I made up for lost time.
You made up for lost
Oh, yeah.
And where, I know you told me this before, but where did you go to college just to get it on this?
CCNY, City College.
CCNY, that's right. That's right.
Right.
And at that point, you and your mom were already living in Spanish Harlem, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yep.
already moved out of the Coops. So yeah, since I just mentioned the Coops, let's go there. So, what are some of your general recollections of the Coops?
I thought I loved the way it looked.
Yeah,
Have you been there?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've walked by there, and I haven't been in any apartments or anything at this point.
If
But
you went into the central part where it was gardens.
yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I thought it was. I liked it there. My sister didn't. I told my sister that I felt very comfortable there, and she said, "What?"
that's what she told me. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right. But for some reason, I was really, really glad to get out of there, but I don't remember why.
yeah,
When we moved to Manhattan,
yeah.
we had to get rid of our dog Hooky Duke.
Oh, what'd you do with him? Just gave him to someone else?
No, we brought him to Bidewee. It was an age for older dogs to the end of their lives.
Oh, okay, okay, I see.
And it was a good place.
Yeah.
We had complete freedom, had a lot of friends. And my mother went to visit him, I don't know, a couple of years later, and she said he didn't want anything to do with her. And she loved him.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. Did I also tell you that my sister bought me a monkey? A toy monkey?
Yeah, you did. You did.
She mentioned it?
She didn't mention the monkey, no. And she named it
Vomit.
Vomit, that's right.
Right. And I thought that was normal. I didn't think that was weird. So people later in my life told me that was very weird.
Oh, and when you were in the Coops, did you play much with other children that lived there, or were most of your friends outside?
When I was older, when I was in high school, I had friends outside,
Yeah.
and one of my friends was a dancer. Um, she was a lot of fun, and yeah, because I was, yeah, she introduced me to a black guy who was a lot older than me,
Mm,
and I wasn't attracted to him either.
yeah.
But I was so afraid he was going to ask me for sex that he didn't, thank God.
Mm,
Um, but he was a nice guy. But Marty, that was her name. We were real instigators. Uh, and she was Jewish. She was left of center.
yeah.
I was welcomed in her home. Um, Unfortunately, we lost contact. I think she got a little snooty,
Mm,
um, which is too bad.
yeah.
But so I kind of stayed away from her.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But she was a beautiful dancer. Uh, I hadn't. I had high school friends who I would spend time with. They weren't from the Coops.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I did. And I had dates with guys,
Yeah.
and we went to a lot of dance halls and danced, and people got all dressed up, and I
Sure.
wore these. And I had a best girlfriend, Madeline, from high school, and I would visit her all the time.
Mm,
A couple of guys had uh, crushes on me. I was going with this one guy, Lionel Bryan, very handsome, tall, black guy, and I really, really regret this. He came to my house when I was living in Manhattan, and he came to say goodbye because he said he was going to Vietnam.
mm,
And I was so angry with him
yeah.
that he was going to go to Vietnam. And he was on his way home, and his helicopter was shot down.
Oh, wow. That's terrible.
Yeah, yeah. I also heard later that he was gay.
Mm,
And I also learned later that I was gay.
yeah. 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 Um,
So,
yeah. Would you like to talk about that aspect of your life at all? Coming to an awareness of your sexuality at any point, or do you not want to talk about that?
let me just say I was very bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Meaning I did things that were not generally accepted by the general population.
Sure.
But I had fun. It
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, but I don't want to go into that.
Yeah. That's fine.
Especially if my sister's listening.
uh,
Oh my God.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Peter went into it quite a bit with his, but again, he recorded 9 hours, so he went into everything. um,
Yeah.
yeah, but
He was bad too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
Mm.
and you mentioned earlier before we started the dumb waiters in the
Oh, the
coop.
dumb waiters.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I've never used one before, but actually in the building that the historical society is in, we have the dumb waiters, but they're not in use or anything.
Right.
but there's a space for them, and I don't even know if they work anymore, but yeah.
Right. Probably not. I mean, they were held, the thing that went up, the platform that went up was by ropes.
Yeah,
They wear out after, eventually,
sure,
I think.
absolutely.
Um, we used to send messages. Um, but not anybody. Well, it had to be I guess it wasn't in my building. It was in another building
Yeah,
where we sent messages because everybody in our building, as my sister told me, was racist.
yeah.
Which I don't really remember. There was one girl, her parents named her Pretty. Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
And she wasn't pretty. So terrible, terrible. The dumbwaiters were, I mean, I wish that I had them in buildings that I moved to in Manhattan. I
Yeah,
loved them.
yeah.
They were so unique.
Were they in each apartment or just in the
Yeah.
hallways?
No. In each apartment.
Wow.
There was a door in the hallway that opened up to the dumbwaiter, and
Okay.
every apartment had one, the
Yeah.
door to get into it. And you brought it up or you brought it down. Um, they were great. I
Could
liked them.
could a small child fit in them and ride them up?
Not that. Oh my God, that would have been possible. I have no idea. But I didn't think of it. Well, then I was like, I didn't do anything bad when I was little because of
Yeah,
my father.
yeah.
And my sister said to me, "You would do, what did she say? You were afraid of him? You would never lie to him?" And I was like a good girl.
Yeah.
And she couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But she wasn't. Did she talk about that at all?
She did. She told me one of her earliest memories was taking a hammer to the wall before they lived in the Bronx, um, uh, in the Lower East Side, and she
Right.
put a hole in the wall of the apartment with a little toy hammer.
Uh-huh.
And she mentioned other things too, but I thought that was funny that was one of her
Her
earliest
memories.
memories. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know anything about her as a child.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
Yeah.
Did she talk about her childhood?
A little, not necessarily a whole lot. Mostly
Uh-huh.
some of the same kinds of things that you said about, it not being the happiest environment.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and by the time you were growing up, do you remember if your parents still had many friends in the coops or went to other people's apartments very much?
Oh, they did. My
Yeah,
father did.
your father did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember?
I learned through my sister that he was hanging out with other women,
Mm,
which I didn't know as
yeah,
being a kid.
yeah. Um,
He
yeah,
was a mess.
yeah, yeah. She mentioned what you already talked about as far as your father sitting at the kitchen table with
Mm.
Alberto Moreau and pontificating about politics. Although she said she enjoyed that, which is funny. Um, yeah, she said that was one of her favorite things uh, about being in the coops. Maybe the only thing that she liked was
Uh,
hearing them talk about politics.
uh, well,
um,
they had arguments and it was loud and
yep, yep.
uh,
I imagine that got very old, at least at least to most, a lot of people that would get very old of being a child.
Right,
Um,
right.
but
Well, it was better than what he would do if he didn't talk politics.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
was pretty cruel.
yeah,
And I told you that I would leave the table crying and going into the bathroom and took care of my bugs.
yeah, yeah. You told me that. Yeah.
Right, right.
Um,
And my sister actually reminded me of that. I mean, that was a big part of my life,
yeah,
those bugs.
yeah.
Loved them.
And they were only the little, I think they're maybe carpet beetles or something like that. There's a type of beetle or something, right?
I don't know what kind of beetle it was.
Yeah,
They were small. The babies looked different than the grown-ups.
yeah. And they they were just in the apartment. Would you ever get them from like Bronx Park? Would you ever get any bugs from Bronx Park?
No, not that I know of.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Possibly.
yeah.
There also were these flies. I don't remember what kind of fly it was, but they would attach themselves to birds.
Mm,
And I had a parakeet, and who I was in love with. Um, and I had to protect him from those bugs
yeah,
because they would harm him.
yeah. Um, would you do much for fun in the courtyard of the coops or on the roof of the coops or in the playground or things like that?
Yeah, all of it,
All of it?
all of it. And then I told you that between our development and the next development, there was what we called a jail, and we
Mm,
used to play in that. Um, yeah, there was a lot of playing,
yeah,
a lot of playing. I felt there was a lot to do,
yeah,
and I think I knew a lot of people. That's how it feels now.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what I thought then.
And would some of the white people who lived in the coops, would they uh, acknowledge your presence? Would they say hi or things like that?
Some wouldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, some wouldn't, definitely not.
yeah,
But yeah, definitely not. But the people who were interracial and Black generally spoke to
yeah,
me. It was friendly. That's my memory of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I know Jane didn't think that way.
yeah. Um, and were there any specific instances you can remember of kind of more out in the open racism, aside from just the simmering racism that might have been there? Uh, were there explicit instances that stick out to you of kind of more visceral racism at the Coops?
I don't remember
Yeah.
if there was.
In we haven't recorded it for this oral history, but in another conversation you mentioned, I think it was she might have been around your age, maybe a little older or younger. Um, uh, it was like a nasty girl kind of, that you had a memory maybe of her in the hallway or something. I forget exactly the details, but there
Huh.
was one girl that you mentioned. Um,
From the
maybe,
Coops?
yeah, maybe you both were teenagers or something. Um,
I have no idea.
yeah, I don't know if it was a particular instance. She might have just been very snobbish, a white girl towards you. But
Well, I'm sure that existed. I could feel it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
definitely could feel it. I
yeah,
don't remember the particulars, but
yeah,
that did occur.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and what about in like the wider neighborhood? Um, either within a few blocks of the Coops or maybe a little further away from the Coops. Did uh, anything stick out to you uh, about any kind of racial slurs that you might have heard or things like that?
The racial slurs I definitely heard,
Yeah.
and it was in the Bronx by the Bronx Zoo and the Botanical Gardens. And I was with my friend Linda Naftelberg.
Mm.
Um, she was white, can you tell?
Yeah.
We were close until I got a little older and she couldn't tolerate my ethics.
Mm.
But a guy across the street yelled, "Hey, nigger!"
Mm.
So people knew I was black.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like there's nobody who thought I was white.
Yeah.
And I like that better.
Yeah.
Um, Even my daughter recently told me, and she's really very beautiful, and her skin is definitely darker than mine.
Mm.
Her skin is darker than olive.
Mm.
And she said that Black people have yelled at her because she was too light.
Mm.
It's all disgusting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
and it makes life really difficult.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Um,
anyway, I was shocked
yeah.
when she told me that.
Yeah. Mm. Um, Aside from high school, were there any other parts of the Bronx that you would go where it would be primarily other Black people with you?
Um, yes, north near Evander,
Yeah,
there were a lot of Black folks
absolutely.
and two-story houses. I think they were all attached.
Yeah,
Um, that's that's where I was with Black people.
yeah,
I went there not infrequently.
yeah. Mostly to friends' houses, or were there
Yeah,
restaurants or anything like that that you'd go to?
that I don't remember, but definitely friends' houses.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was very comfortable, very comfortable. And I remember some of the names. Arlene Hayward.
What do you remember at a vendor at the time? Was it mostly um, people who had recently come from the Caribbean or from down south, or a good mixture?
Not from the Caribbean that I remember.
Okay, I see. Yeah,
Um, Definitely from the South.
yeah,
But I don't know how long they had been. They weren't newly into the United States.
yeah. Sure, sure, sure.
And I had a lot of fun in high school.
Yeah,
It was great. And most people hate high school.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I had a ball.
Was there anything in the way of like Black history taught in
Hell
history
no.
classes? I didn't think so. Yeah, yeah. Were any of your teachers Black, or were all of the teachers white at Evander?
We're all white.
All white.
All
Yeah,
white. Right.
yeah.
And we girls couldn't wear pants.
Mm.
We had to wear dresses or skirts and a blouse. And I remember my saddle shoes. Remember saddle shoes?
I, I've I I've heard of them before and I've seen them, but luckily I've never had to wear them.
Well,
No,
they were hip when I was young.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I imagine most of the curriculum was look how great of a country America is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that line. Um, your sister told me a story. Maybe when she was in fourth grade, she had to write
Uh-huh.
an essay on why the US is the best country in the world, something along those lines.
Oh gosh, you didn't tell me this stuff.
And so
Go ahead.
she brought it home to your father, and your father, uh, went into a rage, and she said basically dictated to her what she should write, about
Right,
the genocidal legacy basically of the US. And
right,
she turned
right.
that essay in, and caused a big stir, and eventually had
Was
to.
she upset?
No,
Oh, good.
she said she agreed with everything she wrote, um,
Right,
and
right.
she had to see the principal, but the principal evidently maybe was at least it sounds to me anyway, like she was a closet communist, because she said, "I agree with everything you wrote," and then let her go. Um,
He
so
said that.
the principal, I think it was a woman at the time. She said,
She said, really? That was
"Yeah,
her reaction. I'll be
yeah,
damned.
I know. I was not expecting that." Um,
Wow.
so
See,
anyway, but
you never know who's in the crevices.
yeah.
Gotta watch out for those people.
Absolutely, but yeah, anyway, so I'm sure, I imagine your experience in school was the same kind of curriculum. I mean, that's the curriculum that is still taught in a lot of places, even in this country. But um,
Right.
yeah,
Well, I mean, I was never taught anything about slavery.
yeah,
Nothing. It didn't exist.
yeah,
Um, it just wasn't a part of your thought processes.
yeah,
Yeah, I never had any kind of Black history
yeah,
in high school, even in college.
yeah.
And I took a history course regarding music,
Mm.
and the teacher said, jazz is not an art form. And
Unbelievable. I mean,
yeah,
believable, unfortunately, but
right.
insane. Um, yeah. Wow. Um, so when you were in college, was there much in the way of like Black student associations or anything like that that you could plug into?
No,
Yeah.
no. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was mostly Jewish.
Yeah.
And there were people from the Coops who went to CCNY when I was there. Not many, but a few. Um, and, it was the 1960s and we were all fighting for the right to vote.
Yeah.
We all talked about uh, racism, and we were all very, very aware and very political
Yeah.
at CCNY. And I told her I went on the 1965 march.
I was going to ask you to speak about that if
Yeah.
you'd like to.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I really see how old I am because people said you went to that march, really? People were very impressed. But I didn't have any money to get there. So in the cafeteria, I went around with a basket and said, please give me money so I can go to Alabama. And that's how I got there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anybody on the bus. There was absolutely nothing that I was concerned about or afraid of.
Mm.
And I mean, today I don't like to travel alone.
Yeah.
I've traveled a lot around the world, but I always had to be with somebody.
Yeah.
But we had to stop. Oh, I know the thing I'm not talking to. Oh, Robeson. Um, We had to stop at a gasoline station,
Mm.
and it said for colored only. I had never seen that.
Yeah.
Never freaking saw that. And it was a trip. It was scary,
I bet.
really scary. We did not go inside the restaurant or whatever it was,
Yeah.
or get some candy or whatever. Of course, who the hell knows? But it got scary at that point.
Yeah.
And then, and we were a totally mixed crowd on the
Mm.
bus. And we got to Selma, and I have no idea how long it took. And I don't really recall people yelling at us from, I think we probably tried to be as indistinct as possible.
Yeah.
And when we got to Selma, the bus stopped. I had no idea where we were going. I had no idea where we were sleeping.
Yeah.
Not a clue. I don't even think I thought about it.
Mm.
Uh, so they transported us from the bus to an 18-wheeler truck
Mm.
that had no windows, no nothing. And I said, uh-oh,
Yeah.
it could be really bad.
Yeah.
And I felt like we were going to be transported somewhere.
Yeah.
But we weren't. But it was terrifying.
I bet.
We were all standing up in this truck that probably didn't even have much ventilation.
Yeah.
So it turns out that where we were staying were with Black folks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we were going to the Black neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it just, it really, really makes me appreciative of Black people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the way we were treated was so kind, so protective.
Yeah.
And, I remember in my growing up that, if there was an interracial marriage, the white family of the pending wife were furious.
Yeah.
The Black people were inviting.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that that my blood is 50%. I wish it was 100% Black.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, I really, really wish that.
Yeah.
Because the history of white people ain't good.
No.
It is.
Not at all. Not at all.
And I tell my granddaughter that all the time, because my granddaughter is white.
Yeah.
Her mom is my daughter, and her father was Latino. Her skin is almost ivory.
Mm.
She's so white.
Yeah.
And I would never say that in front of her, because it's going to be a problem for her. But she, at first, when she was younger, she identified as Latina. Now she identifies as Black.
Mm.
And people say to her, "You're not Black. What the hell are you talking about?" She gets really pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And my granddaughter can be real street. Seriously. So she's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
She's a fighter.
Yeah.
And she's hysterical when she talks like she's from the hood. She is funny. Oh God. I mean, where she lives is Washington Heights, so that could be considered the hood.
Yeah. 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 I don't live
depending upon where you are.
So
Huh?
I said I don't live too far from there. I live just
Oh, really?
I live in Marble Hill, which is just 5, 6 stops up on the one train.
On the one train. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Um, but yeah, when you were in Alabama, uh,
got it ready.
what's that?
Got already. I swear to God. I'm
um,
sorry.
no, no, that's fine. What are some of the things that that you were you there for very long or just for the march?
Just for the march.
Yeah.
And left. Um, I don't at night sometime. I don't know what time it was, but it
Okay.
was at night.
Yeah.
Um, and the troopers and the police were lining all the streets with their weapons.
Mm.
And are you home?
What's that?
Are you home?
No, no.
Oh, because I see a young person walking up the stairs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
You
another
don't have to
person who
explain. It's
works
fine.
here. Yeah.
I was going to say I like your file cabinets a lot.
Thank you.
Um, what was I saying? Oh, the military and the cops.
Yeah,
The hatred on their face was pretty frightening.
I'm sure.
It was amazing. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was.
Yeah,
That's the way
absolutely.
it was. Um, and if I were raised down there, I'd be a different person.
Yeah,
Definitely, I wouldn't have a mouth like
yeah,
I had my whole life.
yeah.
No way, Jose. This is
Oh, looky
this
there.
is my grandson, my daughter's dog.
Oh, what's his
He's
name?
sweet.
Her name?
Jim, Jim.
His name,
I'm
yeah,
so
Jim.
out of it today. Mike.
Mike.
Oh
Oh,
God, right? He's a sweetie.
yeah, what a sweetie.
A terrible breath.
Um,
Well, he got a bath yesterday. But it's Tick Haven up here.
oh yeah, I'm sure.
It's horrible. And before they come into the house, we check them for ticks, and there are at least 8 or 9 on him.
Yeah.
But they all have tick collars.
Okay,
If the
yeah.
tick, yeah. So they won't get Lyme. They won't have a chance to. They won't live to a fat old age
That's good.
where they're filled with blood.
Oh.
So
Um,
anyway,
now, when you were growing up, did you go to any of the summer camps?
oh yeah.
Yeah?
Anyone is my sister. She talked about camp.
She didn't, no.
Oh, I think Peter and I were at some of this. What was really funny when I saw Peter for the first time when I went to Colorado,
Yeah.
he remembered so much Yiddish, and I was just cracking up. I forgot about all those words.
Yeah.
He was hysterical, and we had different expressions
Yeah.
in Yiddish that had undertones of whatever the hell it meant.
Yeah.
And there was like attitude with it. What, sweetheart? Oh, the cat. Oh, you can't see the cat.
Oh,
Can you?
he's paying attention to the cat, isn't he?
Oh, no, 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 no. You can't do that. No, no. You cannot attack the cat. I didn't know the cat was behind me. Wait, 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 wait. Giant
Oh, I
movie
think I
head.
see its ears. Oh, yeah, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful cat.
So, no, no.
He said, "Please, I really want to growl."
um, yeah, he just remembered so many expressions from our childhood.
Yeah.
Did he use any of them when he?
No,
No,
not that I remember. Not that I remember. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't think he used any Yiddish. Maybe, maybe one or two like really standard ones,
right,
schmuck or
right.
something like that maybe, but
Yeah, no, no, no. We knew a whole lot more than
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Um,
that. Yeah, it was. They had so much meaning. These expressions.
yeah.
Oh, see, there's a tick. God damn you! Get down! Get down!
You get it?
No, no. What did I? Is this it? This is one of them, but the one that I had was very much alive. Do you see a tick
Mm.
here on my nose?
No. I don't see one on your nose.
Oh, wait a minute.
Let me see.
Yeah. I get very confused because things are backward.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. Let's see.
No, it's well, if it was a tick, it's going up. I mean, in the middle of the night, I pick them out of my scalp.
Wow, yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
And everybody up here has had Lyme,
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
including my granddaughter when she was very, very young.
Mm.
Mm. I I didn't check him when he came in. I was gardening.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I see
Anything
crawling.
Okay.
Um, and I forget how long exactly have you lived up there now?
Um, 20 years at least.
Okay, yeah,
Long time.
yeah.
Very long time. I should show you around. It's very beautiful.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Yeah. Um,
You can meet my chickens.
I would love that. I remember you mentioned them last time, and they
Yeah.
sound like they're beautiful.
Yeah, some of them are.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, and if we go out and I mean they'll follow us
Yeah.
because they're following me. Ah. What's good though is most of the ticks that we're seeing are wood ticks.
Mm.
They're bigger than the regular deer, much bigger than deer ticks.
Okay, I
Deer
see.
ticks, when they're babies, they're like the tip of a needle. It's like a dot.
Yeah.
Um, shit. Excuse me. Oh, I can curse.
Yeah, yeah,
Curse.
yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, yeah,
What
the
were we talking about?
the summer camps.
Oh, Camp Huachica.
Camp Chica, yeah.
You heard that?
Yeah.
Kindling.
Kindleland, yep.
Um, those are the only two I remember. Those
Okay,
two.
I see. And what was your experience like at those camps?
I was young and I was really screwed up in my head.
Mm.
And I would be sorry.
Oh no, that's fine.
Uh, I would be. I was very unhappy at camp,
Yeah,
and I wanted to be home.
yeah.
And my parents, I don't think it was maybe Kinderland where they had an adult camp.
Mm.
So my parents were there, and I was miserable. I
Yeah.
did not like camp. Uh, and my mother, I think, would get me out of there earlier.
Mm.
uh, Camp Kimberlin. I mean, there was no, they were like leftist camps.
Yeah.
So it was fairly easy to get along with people.
Yeah.
Whether there was any racism or not, I have no idea.
Yeah. 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 And what are some of the things growing up that made you the happiest? What are some of your happiest memories from either your time in the Coops or your time in the Bronx in general? Um,
Um, High school, I was fine in being in high school,
yeah.
hanging out with my friends, but was I happy? No.
Yeah.
And nobody knew.
Sure.
And uh, I can't even, I don't even want to talk about
Yeah.
it. Sorry.
Oh, no, no, that's fine.
I think my happiest times was when I was dancing.
Yeah.
Uh, when I was when I was young, playing with close friends, I was happy.
Sure.
Um, and then, these bad things just pop into my head that
Yeah.
ruins it all.
Yeah.
And one thing I will mention is that my friend Helen Lloydestein, who was my best friend, she lived in the Coops. They weren't leftists, and we were best friends. And she would come up to my apartment and pick me up,
Mm.
and then we would walk to school together, PS
Yeah.
96. And she was really little. And before she came, the painter was at our house to paint the inside of the apartment.
Mm.
And he was molesting me.
Oh, no.
And he was behind me and he was holding my vagina. He
Oh,
had his
that's
arms
terrible.
around me. And I was terrified.
Yeah.
And Helen came in, he let go. And I said, Helen, we have to get out of here right now.
Yeah.
And we did.
Wow.
And I told my mother about it. And she said she'd tell my father. And I said, well, what happened, Ma? He said, oh, it was no big deal, was his response.
Oh, my God.
I don't even think my sister knows that. Another time when I was in middle school, I had a friend named Grace Giglio.
Mm.
Remember her name? No, it must have been high school, the beginning of high school, because she came to my house for lunch.
Mm.
And there was a place where my father would keep his cab.
Yeah.
And whenever I was on the bus, I would look to see if his cab was there.
Yeah.
And then he was home. And I don't remember seeing the cab, but in any case, he was home.
Mm.
And I fixed lunch for both of us. And we were really close friends. We were like blood buddies.
Mm. Yeah.
We used to do. And we were sitting at opposite of each other at the table. And my father went over to Grace and fondled her breasts.
Oh, my God.
And I don't even know if she told anybody. And it was horrible.
That is
She had
horrible.
no reaction. She was probably stunned. And I'm sure she was. And she didn't do anything or say anything. She just, and then he went away.
Yeah.
So our friendship didn't last
Yeah.
very
Wow.
long. Um, and I had another friend, Laura. Um, we were younger than high school, but we were friends. And her family was Jewish. They were leftists. They didn't live in the Coops.
Mm.
And we were best friends. And she and I had a ball together, had a lot of fun. And I was 100% welcome at her home.
Yeah.
And the same for my home until her parents told her she couldn't come to my house anymore.
Mm.
And she told me what it was, but it had to do with my father.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was pretty devastating.
That is. Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I do remember that we were tussling with each other on the floor and playing around, horse playing around. And I think I was anywhere between 7 and 10
Yeah.
years old. And my father came over and said, you know, you two really need to stop that because you're both lesbians.
Oh my God.
And that, I think, probably was the end of our friendship.
Yeah.
She probably told her parents. But it was something else that I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But her parents said,
Yeah.
So, and we were at CCNY at the same time.
Mm.
We were no longer friends, hadn't seen each other in years. And then we ran into each other. And I was really happy to see her.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't talk anything about the past. And she wanted nothing to do with me because I wasn't a communist.
Yeah.
And she's very political. And she had no respect for anybody who did not believe what she believed. It was amazing. She was really rather obnoxious.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah. Um,
So
when did you graduate college?
1966.
66.
It
Were
would have
there
been 65.
were
But
there
it was,
any initial stirrings at CCNY of like Black Power yet?
oh no, it was too early.
Yeah. That's what I figured.
Yeah, it was too early.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if the word black was used then.
Yeah.
Might have been
Yeah.
used then.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you know, if the art teacher is going to say that jazz is not an art form, things were not too cool
No.
still.
No. Not
There
at
was no
all.
advancement at all.
Not at all. I
If
mean,
he wouldn't have said,
yeah.
later years, he would not have said that because he'd be in big trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I know it took CUNY students fighting tooth and nail in the late 60s, early 70s, even to get, you know, uh, Black studies departments at the CUNY schools.
Yeah,
And then
there
they tried
wasn't
to
when I
take them
was there.
away within a matter of years. So,
Right.
yeah. Um, but, uh, but yeah, well, what are some of the things that you have gone back to, kind of as ways to find joy in this world, or even means for survival, what are some of the things that you have gone to over the years for that?
Well, I was very political,
Yeah.
very political, and I was a physician assistant. Have you heard of us, physician assistant?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. A lot of us would call each other a physician associate.
Mm,
But in the
sure.
1970s, when I was in school, uh, to become a PA, doctors hated us.
Mm.
Hated us. I'm getting off again. See, I just get off. All right, let me answer your question. Okay. I worked at Downstate Medical Center and Kings County Hospital, both
Yeah.
of those places. And I was very, I don't know if you'd call it, yeah, I was very political. When HIV, I wasn't at those two hospitals. It was after. Um, when HIV came and I was working in a methadone maintenance clinic,
Mm.
and this clinic tend to see people who were professionals in in their communities.
Mm.
They weren't the down and out. And I loved working there.
Yeah.
And when this disease was happening and nobody knew what it was, but initially it was believed that only homosexual men got it.
Mm.
And a couple of my patients were suicidal
Yeah.
because they were sick. This is outpatient, sick, and the parents were furious that they were gay, which they
Yeah.
weren't.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Actually, yeah. Uh, I went from there to Kings County and downstate. Yeah, I did. Because I
Mm.
was running a study about AZT,
Mm.
and I forgot the name of the study. Actually, that was only a very small part of it. And everybody died.
Yeah.
Everybody. And I was very involved in ACT UP
Sure.
and went on a lot of marches and screaming our heads off. Uh, Went to other states to conferences and went to the international AIDS conferences,
Mm.
Montreal, Stockholm, Sweden. Um, I don't know if there was one in DC or not. I don't remember. But those are the two I remember.
Yeah.
And I had poster presentations of the study that I was running. And it was a very, very, very busy time.
Sure.
And I was very involved,
Yeah.
very, very involved, and did public speaking. And my photograph is in a couple of medical magazines. I have no idea where they are. But I worked there for 11 years. I also taught about 4 or 5 of my patients who were HIV positive. I think they had AIDS. Um, how to run a GYN clinic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I got them very involved. I taught them how to take blood pressures, um, how they could assist me in the room when a patient was there. And one of them, I got the hospital to pay for her to come to Sweden with me.
Oh, wow.
And there was another patient who, God, I remember her name, Sharon. Had 2 kids, I think, 2 or 3 kids. And one of her kids was very young. And everybody died of AIDS. So she assumed she was going to die of AIDS.
Yeah.
And she said, "Will you take my son?" And I said, "Yes." That was Devin. I think his name was Devin.
Mm.
But in any case, the time in Sweden was like once in a lifetime experience for her.
Yeah.
And it was dark during the day and bright at night.
Yeah.
And which meant we just stayed up 24 hours and partied. A lot of fun. That was 1990. I think I knew Anna Marie then, I think, or maybe soon after. I don't remember. But that's my wife.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't party that much. Maybe I met her after. Or maybe I did. No, I didn't. No, Emma. Oh, nothing. I don't remember where that was going. Well, except that I was there for 11 years and there was a lot of political stuff that, around the hospital.
Sure.
And it was a real dysfunctional family and I had to get away.
Yeah.
And I also was thoroughly depressed.
Yeah.
Because every one of my patients died.
I know, yeah.
Young people. And I was furious with people in the medical profession who were terrified of HIV and wouldn't see HIV patients. And get the fuck out of the profession.
Yeah. For real.
And I remember going on the subway to work and I would be reading something about AIDS. People would see the cover. They'd walk away from me. They didn't want to catch it from me.
Yeah.
Because obviously I was HIV positive if I'm reading his stuff.
Oh my
God. It was horrible. I mean, nurses refused to assist doctors with an HIV patient.
Mm.
In the OR, they wouldn't participate. It just infuriated me.
Yeah.
And I never even used gloves to draw blood.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't as good with gloves on.
Sure.
And you don't get HIV that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way. And it was mandated that we would wear gloves. And I would. I mean, if I was in the OR, I would, but.
Yeah.
So that's when after 11 years, I guess we were together, we bought a country house up here. And I didn't want to go back to the city.
Yeah.
And I found a job rather quickly because of my profession,
Sure.
and I did family medicine for a number of years. I loved it. um, and Emma couldn't get a job as easily as I could. So I stayed up. I came here a year earlier than she
Mm.
did. Um, and she created jobs for herself. Um, and I worked in various medical facilities. I worked at Marist Student Health Service. My first job as a PA was at the Student Health Center and faculty of Columbia University.
Mm.
My salary, my first job, I think my salary was 13,000, and that was a lot of money.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yep.
So that was right out of college for you?
No, I went to college and then I went for a master's that I never finished at Cornell, and then I came back. And my sister's best friend was the director of the PA school at Harlem Hospital.
Oh, okay, I see.
And so I became a PA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was amazing. It was at Harlem Hospital was my training. It was great. Absolutely great.
Yeah. You
Um,
know, some of the murals in Harlem Hospital, uh, Jimmy Jurgens, Paul Jurgens'
uh-huh.
father, helped paint.
Really?
Yeah,
Now, Jurgens, that was Willa's last name, and also Eloise Jurgens.
yeah.
And you said Jimmy Jurgens?
That was Hartwell's brother, so it would have been
How
Eloise's.
do you know all these people like they're all friends? So funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, and his sons Carl and Paul. Carl, of course, is passed, but Paul,
Right.
I think you might have known Paul,
Yeah,
maybe.
I did, and I ran into him in Missouri when I went to visit Willa
That's
two
right,
years
that's
ago.
right. But yeah. Anyway, uh, so so yeah, Jimmy Jurgens helped paint some of the murals. I think it was probably at least 20 artists or something. It was through one of the WPA projects, and it was I think it all
WPA, what is that?
Works Progress Administration.
Oh, interesting. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I think it was all black artists, maybe in the late 30s or something, maybe mid 30s. But he was one of them. Um, and yeah, I don't know which murals that he's responsible for painting, but I know he had a hand in it. So, uh,
Right.
but but anyway, so what would you say from either growing up in the Bronx in general or in the Coop specifically, what from that has most shaped your life going forward?
Hmm. I have to kind of um uh I would say a real lack of trust of men
Sure,
and white people.
sure,
That's
sure,
big.
sure. Absolutely.
um and but it wasn't, yeah, no, what I said is true. I am very, very happy that we lived across the street from the Bronx Park.
Yeah,
It was my salvation,
yeah,
and it was my park. And I just have such fond memories of the park.
yeah,
Um, you asked what gave me pleasure a while ago,
yeah,
that gave me happy times. And I think I said dancing
yeah,
and my love of animals.
sure.
And the park brought me a lot of solace. I'm saying it solace. Solace, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, solace. Um, but I mean, dance did it for me.
yeah,
My relationships with men before I got involved with women was really very unhealthy.
yeah,
Um, and I'm very glad that, or appreciative of the fact that I love women.
yeah,
Um, and in terms of the coops, I really appreciated the physical environment of the coops.
sure.
Really appreciated it. Um, and the whole, where the development, I hate to use the word development, but the buildings that I lived in, it was like a U shape,
Yeah.
and you could get to everybody's apartment from the roof. And it was also Tar Beach in the summer.
Mm.
And also, I mean, no neighbor could know this, but sometimes we bring our dog up to pee.
Yeah.
But that was a secret.
Yeah.
I mean, we're right on the top floor. That's what you do when, make Black people live on the top floor. They don't want
Yeah.
to go down. It's
Yeah.
easy to go up.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So um, I liked the physical environment. And I thought that I loved the buildings.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the 50s and the 60s. 61, I started college. Wow. It's a long time ago, when they still had the dumbwaiters,
Yeah.
which I loved.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
uh, but generally speaking, I mean, I acted out a lot.
yeah.
I was pretty disturbed.
Yeah.
And I suffer from depression. And that makes people being around me sometimes uncomfortable.
Mm.
Um, and my childhood, like my sister, was horrible. Um, and teenage years were really bad. And dance was very helpful.
Yeah.
And I was really good.
It sounds like
Oh,
it. Yeah.
I was, except that, I was screwed up in the head.
Sure.
And I don't think that you can really be a successful dancer with uh, active depression,
Mm,
because things just happen that get in the way.
yeah.
Um, but I stopped in my mid 30s, as I've said before. One thing that I didn't mention, I think, in the first one, in the first one, I did mention it. It had to do with Paul Robeson and us taking a bus to Peekskill where
Yeah,
he
that's right.
performed.
That's right.
Excuse me. And we were attacked by rocks on the way. I don't think I even knew why,
Yeah.
but I was very young, and we had to lay down on the floor under the seats.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, but going back was fine. There was no issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I was with my mother, and my mother was pretty feisty. She did not play.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how she was able to marry a black man in the 1930s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
fuck
Yeah.
you all.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
Yeah. You
And my
mentioned.
father was very, very handsome when he was younger. He was
Mm,
gorgeous.
mm.
Anyway, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, you mentioned when you were talking about Alabama, the look on the police and military's face, and uh, that same kind of look. If you look at the old pictures of Peekskill, 1949, you see that same look on the people throwing rocks at the buses. I mean, you would have been what, 4 or 5? Is that right? In 1949?
Well, yeah. Is that when it occurred in 1949?
Yeah,
I was 4 or 5.
yeah. It was. There were two instances. August was the first scheduled one, but Paul Robeson couldn't even get through the road, so they rescheduled it for early September. And I imagine that's probably when you went, because that's when all of the rock throwing took place. But yeah, you see that same just pure hatred in the pictures from there. I mean, yeah. There's more recent instances of it too. January 6th. I think you see
That's
that.
the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, yeah,
First thing I thought of.
yeah.
Ah,
Um, but but yeah, it's a really terrifying look. It's hard
yeah.
to believe that it's a human face that's capable of making that look. But I guess when the human faces are animated by the pure hatred, that
Yep.
I guess that's what happens. But anyway, I just thought of that. Actually thought of Peekskill when you were talking about Alabama, and then I was hoping you'd say something about Peekskill. So um, it was just you and your mom who went on the bus. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
She was
Wow.
a little white lady.
She, I'm sure she, uh, I'm sure
Made
she
up for
would
it.
have defended you tooth and nail if it came to it. But
Yeah.
yeah. But wow. Well, what are some things from your life, whether it's lessons you've learned or anything else from your life that you'd like to pass on, in particular to your daughter, granddaughter, or anyone else who might listen to this?
Um, in terms of my history,
Yeah,
well, I haven't really introduced it to my granddaughter who's 14.
sure.
14 is a terrible age. It's
Yeah.
horrible. And I love her to death, but 14, holy shit. But in any case, um, I will. I mean, I've talked to her
Yeah.
about when she was younger, she identified as Latina.
Mm.
And she now identifies as Black.
Yeah.
And I have always encouraged that with her.
Sure.
And people in school, and some people in her school, she's in the 8th grade, insist that she's white.
Mm,
She gets furious. Who
sure.
the hell do you think you are? I mean, she's got a mouth, this girl. And she's very smart, very smart. And I told her I shared my experiences with her being light skinned and what I've gone through being light skinned. I told her about the Howard Beach incident. Did I tell you that?
Yeah.
And other instances that were not pleasant. And she's going to face the same thing.
Sure. Absolutely.
And she knows that I'm very, very impressed with her as a Black teenager. And you're going to have to deal with a lot in your life, honey, but it's worth it. You got the Black in you, which is better.
Yeah.
So she'll be fine. It's very tough. And she's a sweetheart. And she can talk like she's from the hood. She is a trip. I was laughing. Oh God. Anyway.
Well, her grandma's from the Bronx, so
Oh God.
Bronx means
From the
business,
Bronx.
so
The Bronx what?
The Bronx means business.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know the Bronx at all, except for White Plains Road,
sure,
Allerton Avenue,
sure.
and where Evander was.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm sure you didn't really have much reason to go to other parts of the Bronx when you were growing up.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else about your life that you'd like to share?
I don't believe in God, but I do believe my father would have a fucking fit. Maybe he can hear me. That'd be great. That I don't believe in God, but I definitely believe in whatever created nature
Mm,
and I believe that's a higher power. And I think that nature it's so architecturally outstanding,
yeah.
and I don't think that can be an accident.
Mm,
And I just find, like, when we had a house in Costa Rica, we lived in the jungle,
yeah.
and there were places that I couldn't go on my property because it's too dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh God. But I had a friend, oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. I really loved him. I still do.
Mm,
He would meet me at like 4 o'clock in the morning
yeah.
and when he knew the monkeys would be around.
Oh, wow.
And we would just sit on a dirt path and just wait for them to come.
Yeah.
And they did. And there were 2 resident toucans on the property and other animals as well. But I don't remember their names right now.
Yeah.
But it's, uh, I miss New York City, but I'm so appreciative that we live up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is gorgeous.
Absolutely. I mean, and it sounds like nature has always been, one of the things that has brought you the most joy. So to be surrounded by,
Right.
a very natural environment constantly, I'm sure that's very
Soothing.
filling for you. Yeah.
It is. It is. And I can sit on a bench outside and stay with my chickens
Yeah.
for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
I don't get bored.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I really would take you through a tour if you wanted to.
No,
But you're
I would love that. I would love that. Yeah.
really?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah. Uh, my wife and I don't have a car, but we occasionally will borrow my father-in-law's car.
Uh-huh.
So, uh, so yeah, when at some point, if we're upstate near you, then I would
That'd be
really,
great.
yeah.
That would be great. Do you know Rhinebeck, New York? No.
The name sounds familiar,
No,
but
okay, you don't know the. Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
do you know?
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
I'm gonna go ahead and I think stop the recording so we can
Oh, that's
talk some more here. Um,
okay.